Hello everybody, it is Liam, the Deaf Doom Metalhead, and today is all about vinyl. Is a big old stack below my foot here of some horrible death metal, doom metal, black metal, everything in between, and hopefully you'll discover something new from all these bands, and you'll get a kick out of this video. So it feels like I haven't done a video in ages, it's probably been about 3 weeks, but in that time my baby daughter has arrived and completely turned upside down everything in our household. She was supposed to be born next week, but yeah, she fucked all that up, and we were in Wales at the time about to go see Rammstein, and within an hour of being there she decided she wanted to come out, so we didn't see Rammstein. I didn't see any of Cardiff, I just saw the hospital, and we spent 2 days in a hospital with a load of people speaking Welsh at me, so it was a big experience, and one I'll never forget. But anyway, let's talk about some music. So first band is a very well-known band, and this is the band Enchantment. Now, I love Enchantment, and I discovered the band probably my mid-20s when I was going through a real phase of discovering all sorts of death doom, and one of the bands that people used to mention on like these forums I used to use was the band Enchantment, but they used to always say the vocals were something to be desired, and when I first heard it, it reminded me instantly of Gorefest. A lot of people don't like Gorefest purely because of the vocals, like especially the newer style of Gorefest, not the first album, but the newer stuff. He kind of changed his style, and Paul's voice is very similar, but with more of a Scouse twang in it, I can hear. But this is the new album, Cold Soul Embrace, which was put out through Cosmic Key and Transcending Records this year. Absolutely love this cover, and recently they revealed how it was done. This is actually taken at the bottom of some part of Australia's ocean, where this woman here, who's a stunt devil for Miss Marvel, tied herself to a chained block. They had scuba divers either side of this while she held her breath to give her air when she needed it, and yeah, an amazing image. And it's really funny how a load of northerners from Blackpool used it for a doom album, so I bet she wasn't expecting that when she put her life on the line for art. But anyway, the music. So this is old school sounding death doom, but even though it was written in the 90s, you think, oh, it must sound really modern. It's been like, what did I write down? It's like 28 years into making this album, and it still sounds like it came out in 94, 95. Even though it's been recorded and brought up to date using the bass player Mark's home studio, it still sounds like it could have easily been just remastered from the 90s and they just kind of plucked it out. They may have done that secretly, I doubt it, but it's crazy to think that the music they wrote back then still has that old school 90s sound. It doesn't sound modern at all, and you think over all those years as musicians they must have had tons of other inspiration since then, but it hasn't really crept in the music. I mean, this album is very, very gothic, very, very sad. It has some brutally heavy parts, and it's an album that's really mixed in its style. It's not just death doom as death doom is now, where it's more emphasis on being a death metal band where you play slow and you play these horrible melodies which give you that emotion. These guys are doing it the way it used to be done, because it's the only way they probably know, is where it is heavy, but there's beauty in the harmonies, there's keys in there that kind of give it that kind of grand gothic vibe. It gets a bit symphonic in some places, which surprised me a lot. I'm not keen on symphonic stuff, but when it's done very subtly, I really enjoy it, and there's another album on this one that has that as well. But this, yeah, and Paul's vocals are fucking awesome on this. I mean, I know he doesn't like the vocals on Dance the Marble Naked, which was their debut album, but for this, he's all bark, he's all gruff. There's some odd Scouse twang moments where he does the clean spoken bits that do make me laugh, just because I find the accent funny. But it works really well. It's got that gothic grand vibe, like My Dying Bride do, where they make it all big and grandiose. These guys do exactly the same thing, and there they are, the lads on the back. The only complaint I have about this album, and it's got nothing to do with the actual album, the artwork here, you can't really see it on the camera, but Paul's face is smudged on this photo here. They all, Mark, Judas, see there's fine, little Mark over there, Steve, they're all fine, but you look at Paul, he's all blurred out. You even get those like serial killer Netflix documentaries, you can't quite make out the face. But yeah, Killer Gatefold, again with the artwork of the lass there, putting their life on the line. I'm gonna have to say a massive shout out to Mark for sorting me out with this. And I got the peppermint green bubblegum, whatever you want to call it, blue splatter vinyl version, which is really nice. And yeah, it's just a fucking superb album. I mean, this is me not blowing smoke up the arse because I'm friends with the guys and they're fucking legends, but you know, As Greed as the Eye Beholds is probably my song of the year at the moment. I mean, that song is going to be hard to top for standout songs for 2022. Just hooky, it's catchy, and they already used it as the single, so it wasn't a big surprise at the start of the album either. It's just a really, really good song, and I still listen to it a lot. And there is the inner with lyrics and photos of them mincing about somewhere in Blackpool, I'm guessing. But yeah, it's just superb, and I'm really honoured to have my name in the thank you notes as well, so thank you guys for that. I'm really proud of that. That's a mini achievement for me, even though when I told the wife and the kids, they were like, who? But what the fuck do they know? Anyway, go and buy it. It's a superb album. Will be high on my end of year list, not because I'm friends with them like that. I'm a massive fan of this band anyway, and this is the kind of music that inspired me to be called the Death Doom Metalhead, be in Consecration, do this kind of music. These guys helped inspire that, so fuck yeah. Right, change of pace, but keeping with the orchestrated part, I guess is the wording. This is the new Septic Flesh album called Modern Primitive. Came out through Nuclear Blast this year and is the band's 11th studio album. Now, when these guys started out, they're a Greek band that formed in 1990. They kind of sound like a Death Doom band back in the day. And if you listen to their first album, it's very slow, gothic-y, very early Paradise Lost sound, you know, very heavy, but they're in that ballpark around the early 90s bands, and they are like a Death Doom band back then. But they disbanded in 2003, got back together in 2007, and have cracked on since then. And I picked this one up because it's a lot heavier than their more modern previous releases. Now, Spiros here, who does the artwork, songwriter, he's the bass player and the vocalist. If Morbid Angel ever wanted someone to cover Dave Vincent's vocal style, I think he could do it, because he really does have that Dave Vincent kind of growl. He's got a really good guttural voice, and he's one of my favourite death metal vocalists. You know, some of their music's hard to get into for me because it's so orchestrated, and, you know, it's a bit faffy, and a lot of people don't like them, but I really enjoy their music, especially their earlier stuff. But look at this inner. How fucking awesome is that? And I believe it's done all by the vocalist as well, all the artwork. But the song that made me want this album was Neuromancer. I'll leave a link below, go listen to it. It's heavy, it sounds like Domination Era Morbid Angel, which is my favourite part of Morbid Angel. And it's just killer, and all the songs in here are brutal, they're fast, it's double vinyl. But the bonus, there's some orchestral tracks where they take out the metal parts and just leave what's the orchestral parts of each song. Which is, you know, I don't really care about that, but it's nice. But yeah, go check this out. This is a really, really strong death metal album, and I think this will feature probably high on my end of the year list as well, because I've listened to this a lot. But when I shared it on Instagram, most people weren't keen because they're too orchestral. But I don't see that, especially on this album. If you go and check this one out, it's fucking heavy as fuck. It's got Krim, the drummer who was in Decapitated. He's been in Devin Townsend's band for brief periods live. He's done all sorts of shit. These three are the originals from the band, and this guy also plays live with them, I believe, now as well, and helps produce the album, I think. Can't really remember. But yeah, Septic Flesh, amazing album. Go check it out. Right, changing the pace again for some Swiss blackened death metal. This is the band, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Lykhaeon. I'm going to call it that, it's probably not even pronounced that way. But this was put out in 2021, so that's last year. Band's second full-length album. They're a Swiss band that formed in 2013, two-piece. And what I read up on this band, they're a blackened death doom band, in a way, in my ears, because it's very heavy blackened death metal, but there's a lot of doomy parts in their music. But when I was researching the band for this video, I have to use my notes that are over here. They're part of the Helvetic Underground Committee, which is made up of 13 bands that are all based in Zurich, and they share members from each other, you know, bands of that scene. So the two guys in there also feature other bands like Unfell and Dakmar, and I think the drummer's also in a few as well. So that was really cool to hear. But this was put out through Repose Records, which is a UK label and distro, one of my favourites. I use those guys a lot. I mean, one of the fastest for shipping in the UK easily. I mean, I think his name's Thomas, but I might be wrong. But he can get a record out to me in like 2 days. It's insane how quick his service is, and he gets all the really obscure stuff that I love But this album is amazing, and I really wish I picked it up last year, but I was naughty and picked it up on the sale not too long ago. But I've listened to this album on Spotify for a long time. So if you like Belphegor and that kind of vibe of death metal, but slower, more atmospheric, these guys essentially are in that ballpark. Really, really heavy. The version I got is 2 versions, and I think he sent me both, but on different vinyls. I mean, to be fair, I've only listened to this twice since I've had it. But the first one is like this kind of nice smoky clear, which was one of the variants you could get. It's a double vinyl, but the D side, I'm knocking the camera, the D side is etched, and that one was just pure black. So I have both variants. If I shine a light, you got the band logo there, which I don't think it's supposed to have. But I'm not complaining because I don't really care. It's all about the music with me and my collection. But I have both variants in one packet, so happy days. So yeah, go check it out. Well worth listening to. Really heavy band. There was an insert as well, just like this really nice big book, glossy picture of the lads looking all sinister, as you have to with these kind of albums. I bet they're happy as Larry in real life. But yeah, solid album. Really enjoy this. You know, I really like my kind of blackened death metal where it's heavy, atmospheric, very suffocating vibes. But these guys add a bit more atmospheric, doomy parts to it, so I really, really enjoy that. So yeah, and the cover's wicked as well. So yeah, go check this one out. Lykhaeon, I can't pronounce the album, but it's all down there in the details. Right, next one is another fucking amazing album. I love this band to death. I have all the stuff they put out. This is the latest from Temple of Void. This is their 4th full-length album called Summoning the Slayer. This is a new release for them on, was it Relapse Records? I put this one out? Yeah, they've been on, I think it's, I can't remember the name now, Kingdoms of something. They've used them a lot, and Redefining Darkness they've been on. But they're on a bigger label now in my eyes, and this has got a lot of press. I've seen it loads more. People are picking this band up based off this album and they're dipping back into their previous albums, which is really cool to see, because that's what you want as a musician. You kind of want people to discover your new stuff, then buy your old stuff, Full gatefold, looks fucking incredible. One of my favourite album art this year. Absolutely insane, the detail of the artwork. I've stared at this for ages. When I heard this was coming out, I pre-ordered it instantly because I really am a big fan of this band. Now, I've seen mixed reviews of this album, and I'm kind of confused to why, because when they started out, they're kind of straight up Hooded Menace clone, almost, with Morbid Angel vibes. Their second album, which is again my favourite, because it's got a song called Wretched Banquet, I think it's called. It's just a brilliant riff, but it's the riff that's my favourite part of it. It's just this heavy, thick sound of it. It's perfect, the perfect riff. But as their music's gone on, they've expanded their sound and they're dipping into different styles of Death Doom, because a lot of American Death Doom bands just focus really heavily on being a death metal band but play slower. But that's not what it's about for all of it. You can go full circle with it. You can put lots of melodies in, you can play with different tunings, you can add different instruments into it, kind of really broaden the sound. And Temple of Void on this album have done that. They've gone more into the European style. Like if you listen to bands like Mordor or some of the Czech early 90s bands, they kind of have that vibe in them where it's a bit proggy, it's got that gothic vibe I kind of use in my head, where it's got that kind of clean tones. It's not thick, cavernous sounding. It has that elements in there, but this album kind of has a bigger spectrum of sound, so you're not just getting one style of Death Doom, you're getting a more variety of it. Like, what was one of the songs, Death Touch I think it is, where it's very atmospheric, it's very drawn out, and then there's this really thick, nasty, horrible death metal riff that takes you off in a completely different direction, but then it brings you back in again, to the really slow, heavy shit, which I really like, because it breaks up the song. That's how I do it when I write my music. You kind of have to space it out and use different things, not just rely on 2 or 3 riffs and hope that the song finishes that way. I mean, don't get me wrong, the last track, Disillusion, completely threw me. It's like a proggy, weird, 60s sounding song. It's really weird, but it's on the end of the album, so it's just one of those things they probably wrote that. I thought that sounds really cool, it needs to be on the album, and they've put it in there. But I wouldn't say it ruins the album or makes the band seem weird or anyway. It's just them just doing something different with their music and just putting it on the record for you to hear. I wouldn't say it takes away from the overall sound of Temple of Void. They have a style, and to me they've always sounded like a really heavy low-end version of Morbid Angel, but with more progressive elements as they've gone on. You know, and I really, really like this album. I've got nothing bad to say about it. It's just a solid death doom band just expanding their sound from other albums. So I wouldn't compare it to the other ones because they don't sound the same. They've just, as each album's gone on, they've just changed it up. So there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, new Temple of Void, fuck yeah. Now, next one's a special one. So I recently got to play the 30th anniversary show with Esoteric, which is one of the bands that inspired Consecration when we started out. Shane, our bass player, was a big fan of their like kind of funeral doom approach. So Esoteric are a Birmingham-based band here in the UK, and they've been around since, I think it was 92 they formed. This is their 7th full-length album that was out in 2019. This one's called Empiric Existence. Through Seasons of Mist. This is a heavy thing. Now this is a free LP set, so there's 3 LPs for the music. So how many sides you got? Yeah, side F is the last side, and each song bar 1 is well over 15 minutes long. You can see there the timing, so you know what you're in for. So this is straight up funeral doom. Esoteric are one of those bands that use massive soundscapes in their sound. So when I've watched them live twice now, and luckily played both times with them, and when I watch them on stages, they rely on the effects. And there's 3 guitars, and they use each guitar to build certain parts of the song. They kind of build it up, and the bass player adds little bits here and there, and you know, and then the drummer just kind of keeps the beat going. I'll try and open this up. So because I was playing with Greg, and Greg also mastered the new Consecration album, I got him to sign it there. If you can see, I kind of pestered him as he was putting his gear away to say, look, sign my vinyl please, and he happily did it, which was really nice. And yeah, it's a 3 LP set, so as you open this up, see if I can do it, you've got this fucking 3 disc vinyl set with all the artwork in there. It's an incredible album, really, really heavy, and you know, these can be quite pricey. I mean, this was only 25 quid from the band. You know, you go on Discogs, this goes for 45 notes in some places, which is, you know, quite expensive. And all their albums, I think, are now on vinyl, but they're all literally a 3-piece set, so they're really pricey to get shipped because of the weight and stuff like that. But musically, they're amazing. So if you want to get them, strongly recommend it. I believe the bass player was also in Mournful Congregation and Pantheist as well. I think he's an Aussie, but he also lives in Norway because he had to fly over to play the gig. So yeah, love me some Esoteric, and I'm really proud to have that, especially because it's signed as well by Greg. So if you see this, Greg, which you probably won't, thank you. Right, next is an album that everyone has showed, and you know, it's a very, very good album. You know, it's hard to talk about this album in detail because it's just straight up nasty death metal, and that is the new Undeath album. It's Time to Rise from the Grave. This was put out through Prosthetic Records. This is their 2nd full-length album. The band are based out of US Rochester, formed in 2018, and their first album I kept meaning to pick up and I never did, and by the time I got round to checking it out, and I was like, okay, I watched them live on YouTube and they were fucking amazing. Like the live scene they had and the energy and the riffs on YouTube when I watched it was just insane. I was like, fuck yeah, the band's awesome. And then I read they're having a new album come out. I was like, oh, I have to pre-order that. You know, nothing to do with the hype, because I only knew of them based off their first album, kind of the artwork with that guy kind of hanging in the cave off that alien creature. Never listened to a beat of their music, and then I watched them live playing the set. Can't remember where it was now. One of the YouTube channels I follow filmed it, and it was just incredible. And I thought I have to have that. And this is very, very riffy. It's just bags of riffs everywhere. Like your neck's going all over the place, and you're listening to it. It's just fucking incredible. There's a ton of variants of it, but I got the one that kind of looked closer to the album cover to me, which is like kind of white and purple splatter. And yeah, just solid death metal. I mean, there's no quirkiness to it. There's nothing new to the style. They're just raw, in your face, no fucking about death metal. You know, I love all that. So go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description. Now this one is a weird one. Now this has to be the award for the longest pre-order I've ever had to wait for. Now I purchased this in February 2021. I received it in I think about March or April this year, and it's not, I don't know what the reason was, because there was no mention of it being ever delayed, and that is the latest EP from the band Vanhelga. Yeah, Vanhelga, which is Effin Morte. It's all down there. I can't pronounce it. But this is like a black metal project which was originally formed in Sweden in 2001 as a solo artist by the name of Jacob Otterson. He's put out a number of releases, but this album has a few more musicians in the project. And this was put out through a London-based label called Cult of Panthenop. I think it's pronounced that way. And the reason I wanted it was purely because it was one of the first black metal EPs I listened to last year. I think it was last year, must have been, and it had this weird energy to it. It had some massively cool tones to it. It's got a gorgeous sound, really bright, really clear. And then the last song, Finally Dead, is one of the weirdest songs I think I've ever heard from a black metal band, because it's happy, it's got a weird quirk to the lyrics, it's got female vocals, it even has some kind of like reggae beats in there. Very, very weird, especially how it ends as well. It's all cheerful, dropping shit all over the place. And yeah, that's what. It's just weird. But like some of the songs on here are proper black metal songs, bit doomy, bit proggy, and it's just insane how cool it is. So if you're into like kind of gothic-y kind of stuff as well, I think you get a kick out of them as well. Really, really cool band. Some of the stuff is, I believe, in Swedish, and then some of it is in English. You know, I waited a long time for this, and you know, I can say it's worth the wait. I guess the vinyl looks like that, and I think they have them in stock on their Bandcamp. But I must admit, the communication between the label was poor when I went to buy this. But you know, it might have been a one-off. I don't know. But I had to wait a fucking long time for this. Put it that way. So yeah, go check this out. Really cool, really different as well. I think a lot of people, when they listen to that, will be quite surprised how nice that is. Now, I'm fairly sure I haven't shown this, so I'm going to show it now, because I'm so out of sync with what I've been doing recently with New Baby and all that. And it is the latest album from Aeon's Abyss. Now this is called Terror Manifest, and I know a load of people have already shown this on other YouTube channels, but if you haven't seen this, this is an Aussie blackened death thrash band from, I believe they're from Melbourne, but I could be wrong, I didn't write that bit down. But it's formed by two brothers, Paul and Steve. Total lads, really, really good supporters of the underground. Steve especially looks after me. I've done interviews with him, he's checked out all my stuff. He's a fucking lovely bloke. And his brother Paul, the vocalist, is one of the most unique sounding vocalists, especially on the Aussie scene that I've heard. You know, his voice, I instantly know it's him, and I haven't heard anyone else sound like him. He sounds like a, you know when you hear cat fights outside, it's like that, but a death metal version of it. And it's just insane, his energy he pours into his vocals and his body movements and everything. He must be knackered. Especially now they're a live band now. Now, mine got a bit beat up in the post, especially because it's come from the other side of the world, but the vinyl is absolutely fine. It's all based off tarot cards, and like I said, it's death thrash with a blackened edge to it. I think because of Paul's vocals, it kind of gives it that blackened feel. But Steve's a fucking incredible guitar player. He's one of those annoying blokes that can play all sorts of shit, and he's all well educated on the guitar. Whereas plebs like me just kind of looked at Tony Iommi, copied his power chords, and then just kind of pretended to be a death metal guitarist 10 years later, which I'm neither really. But he's a proper big boy guitar player, can play all sorts of sick leads, and they've got an incredible live band now, really cool guys, and it's just, yeah, really cool band. You know, I can't say anything negative about them. You know, they've got a lot of energy into their work, and the vinyl looks incredible. And yeah, second full-length album from them, so hopefully, I mean, I think this was self-released as well, and they really should be on a label by now, because they're not one of those bands I think are average. They are one of those bands that should be signed, they should be gigging regularly, and hopefully in a couple of years time that will be the thing. But I know logistically these two don't live that close together in Australia, and Australia is a big place compared to where I live, where you can get to somewhere in a couple of hours. So yeah, awesome album, go check them out, I fucking love that band. Right, near the end now, near the end. Now, this one is another album that I've had on my want list for ages, but I only just got around to it a couple of weeks ago, but I've listened to this for ages and ages and ages. This is a 2021 release from a Dutch death doom band, Coffin Lurker. The cover gives nothing away, but this is a two-piece of thick, horrible, really slow, really cavernous death doom. I mean, it's just nasty. This is a very nasty album. So what we got? I don't know how many tracks is on there. Enough. Let's say that. But it's a fucking awesome album. The band was formed not that long ago, I don't think. It didn't really say it when I looked on Metal Archives, but when I researched the two members of the band, you've got a guy called Maurice Dejean, who's in a ton of projects, but one of them that stood out to me was called The Somber, which I have 2 albums from him, which is like a death doom solo one-man project, really heavy but different to this. I think he's put a new one out this year that I need to find out, because I really like that stuff. And then also he's in Nor Their Tons, which is a band I have heard of, but I don't know their music per se. And then the drummer Rene Aquarius, and he's also in a band called Plague Organ, if you know them. Now this was put out by a Sentient Ruin, which kind of specialise in that kind of blackened, horrible, nasty underground music. That label was just chocker full of all sorts of horrible bands you've probably never heard of, and you discover them and think, yeah, they're really cool. Black vinyl, nothing special. But yeah, musically it's one of those ones that you have to be in the mood for. It's not something you just shove on in the car or anything like that. You kind of have to sit down with this album. It's very nasty and thick and heavy, and you have to, you know, put your mind into it. Good one for when you're miserable and it's cold and rainy, put it that way. So yeah, Coffin Lurker. Right, another one that most people probably already shown, you've probably already seen it. But it's the latest band to hit the scene, Static Abyss, which is a 2-piece from California, Oakland, California. One very well-known member, we've got Mr. Chris over here from Autopsy, but also Greg Wilkinson, who is now in Autopsy. But when this was actually formed, this project, it was actually because, I think it was, I read in an interview, Greg had a recording space during lockdown that he wanted to use, and he invited Chris over to come and jam with him, and then they started writing songs together. And then I think at the time of that happening and this being recorded, the Autopsy bass player at the time quit, and then Greg just went straight into the band, because obviously he's jamming with Chris already, natural fit, records their albums, has a studio, you know, makes sense, saves a lot of hassle. And this is death doom, but in a more raw, primitive way. There's no fancy, lush like soundscapes, there's no epic melodies with loads of layering guitars and all that kind of thing. It's just raw, natural death doom. It's slow, it's heavy. It sounds a little bit like Autopsy, but I think that's because of Chris. Excuse me. But riff-wise, it sounds nothing like Autopsy to me. It's very primitive, very heavy. I think Greg is a bass player as well by heart, so his riffing style is very rhythmic. It's very emphasis on the groove aspect of the riff, not just the technicality or the harmonies, all that kind of thing. It's more just raw and heavy as fuck, you know. And I love it. Put out through Peaceville this year, so this is a new release for this year. And yeah, it's fucking awesome, so go check it out. And lastly, to finish this little collection update, is a 7-inch by 2 awesome bands. This is a new 7-inch for this year between 2 awesome bands that are very good on the death doom scene, if you like your really big heavy death doom, and that is Druid Lord and Anatomia. Need a drink and start practice. Excuse me. Right, so Anatomia probably needs no introduction. Japanese legends. They have been around since 2002, and they've got a fucking ton of releases. I mean, I'm looking around my room, I can pick out a load. I love this band. But they've also done a split already this year with Undergang, which was interesting. So they're doing one with Druid Lord. Now these guys are from Florida in the USA. I think they are from Orlando, Florida, and they're a death doom band. This is at the same time they've just put out a new album this year as well. Their second full-length album come out this year along with this split. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. I had to have it. It was a Mark Riddick artwork for a start, which I fucking love. But both these bands pack a punch. Like Anatomia, They put out a really cool album last year, and they've got a ton of splits. And then Druid Lord, I'm digging my, into. I mean, I listened to a lot of their music only last year. I discovered them, and I can't get a copy of their new album anywhere. It's completely sold out. I was late to the party on that one, so I have to wait for it to be repressed before I can pick it up again. But yeah, it's just amazing. Just amazing bands. I've got a long sleeve of theirs turning up from Gurgling Gore at some point when it's pressed, because I really like their stuff. I really do. So yeah, there's only black vinyl. I didn't get anything crazy because these things sell out instantly when they go online. But I wanted it for more the artwork, and then the two bands as well. Well worth the admission fee, as my friend Anthony would say. Right, I'll stop rambling. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Please like this video if you get to the end to show YouTube that I'm alright, and obviously more importantly check out all the bands below. I'll leave links to everything, and then I'll punt content here and everywhere. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to listen to more ramblings from this idiot. Until then, take care and stay fucking heavy.